Why narcissists suffer so much when you have no contact with them. Have you ever wondered why, despite all the terrible things a narcissist may have said or done to you, they still seem completely shattered when you go no contact? Why would someone who devalued you, discarded you, or treated you like you were disposable suddenly panic when you cut them off? Why would the same person who acted like they didn't care now obsess over your silence? Even try to find sneaky ways to get back into your life. You'd expect them to move on, but instead they spiral. Today's video is going to explore exactly why narcissists suffer so much when you go no contact. And I don't mean temporary frustration or annoyance. I mean deep, emotional, existential suffering that reaches into the core of their identity. Suffering that is often invisible to outsiders, but very real, very intense, and often impossible for the narcissist to process in a healthy way. This isn't about sympathy for narcissists. It's about understanding what drives their behavior so you can make sense of the games, the guilt trips, and the desperate attempts to pull you back in. Because once you understand the psychology behind their suffering, you'll finally see that their pain has nothing to do with love and everything to do with control, ego, and emotional dependency. Watch until the end, because this insight will not only answer your biggest questions about narcissists, it will also empower you to maintain the peace and freedom you've earned by going no contact. Let's begin. To understand why no contact causes narcissists to suffer so deeply, you first need to understand what drives a narcissist's internal world. Contrary to how they appear, narcissists are not truly confident. They're not deeply secure, and they're not whole. Underneath the charm, arrogance, entitlement, and control lies a fractured, unstable self-image. One built not on self-love, but on the need to constantly borrow worth from others. This is where the concept of narcissistic supply comes in. Narcissistic supply is a term used in psychology to describe the emotional fuel narcissists extract from the people around them. Attention, admiration, validation, control, obedience, even fear or anger. They feed on these reactions to feel real, to feel important, to feel alive. Now imagine what happens when you go no contact. You cut off a supply. You take away their oxygen. You become the mirror that stops reflecting them. This is not just frustrating to them. It's devastating. Here's why. 1. No contact destroys the illusion of control. One of the narcissist's biggest obsessions is control. They want to control how you see them, how others see them, how you feel, what you do, and even how you remember the relationship. Going no contact is an act of ultimate rebellion. It sends one message loud and clear. You're no longer under their spell. This terrifies them. It means they no longer have access to your emotions. They can't influence your behavior. They can't make you feel guilty, confused, or dependent. And when a narcissist loses control, they don't just feel frustrated. They feel like they're disappearing, like they're no longer relevant, no longer powerful, no longer special. It's an ego collapse in slow motion. 2. No contact triggers a narcissistic injury. In clinical psychology, there's something called narcissistic injury. It's what happens when a narcissist's inflated self-image is challenged or rejected in a way that they can't ignore. No contact delivers the deepest narcissistic injury imaginable. It tells them, without words, you are not who you think you are. You are not as powerful as you believe. I can live without you. This kind of injury causes intense rage, despair, and panic. It threatens their very identity. Remember, narcissists don't build their self-esteem from within. They build it through others. So your silence doesn't just bruise their ego, it fractures it. 3. No contact removes their ability to mirror your identity. During a relationship with a narcissist, especially if you're an empath or highly sensitive person, they use you as a mirror. They shape their identity based on how you treat them, how you see them, and how much power they have over you. But when you go no contact, that mirror is gone. They can no longer see themselves through your responses. There's no reflection, no echo, no reaction, just silence. And in that silence, they are forced to confront the truth they've avoided their whole lives. They don't know who they are without someone else defining it for them. This loss of identity causes deep psychological distress. And they often respond with obsessive behaviors, stalking your social media, sending flying monkeys, or hoovering just to see if they can still provoke a response and reestablish that mirror. For No contact exposes their lack of true intimacy. Narcissists don't know how to build real emotional intimacy. They fake it, mimic it, perform it, but they can't sustain it. They don't share vulnerability, mutual respect, or emotional reciprocity. So when you go no contact, something unique happens. They lose the illusion of intimacy they thought they had with you. They realize that whatever emotional tie they believe you had, it's broken. Not only that, you had the strength to walk away. This causes them to feel inferior. It exposes the hollowness of their connections. It reminds them that they are replaceable. And that thought alone can send them spiraling into depression or narcissistic collapse. 5. No contact forces them to face their emotional dependency. Despite their image of superiority, narcissists are often emotionally dependent on the very people they abuse. They need you for reassurance. They need you for identity. They need you for emotional regulation. And yes, sometimes they even need your pain to feel alive. When you go no contact, they are cut off from their drug of choice, your attention. The very thing they used to manipulate, mock, or dismiss, they now crave it obsessively, but you're no longer there. And their emotional coping mechanisms begin to collapse. They're left alone with the one person they've avoided all their life, themselves. 6. No contact breaks the trauma bond. Trauma bonding is a psychological response that occurs when abuse is mixed with intermittent reward, something narcissists are experts at. They create chaos, then give comfort. They hurt you, then apologize. They withdraw, then reappear. This cycle creates a deep, confusing attachment that can feel almost impossible to break. But no contact is what finally breaks that bond. It severs the chemical addiction to the cycle. It rewires your nervous system. It removes you from the constant push-pull dynamic. And this, more than anything, terrifies a narcissist. Because if you're no longer trauma bonded, they can't manipulate you anymore. They've lost their hold on you. And they know it. 7. No contact ends their fantasy of eternal access. Many narcissists believe that no matter what happens, you'll always be available. That one day, whether weeks, months, or years later, they'll be able to waltz back into your life and restart the game. No contact smashes this fantasy. It introduces a concept they cannot tolerate: permanence. The door is closed. The chapter is over. And there is no coming back. This sends them into panic. It challenges their belief that they are special, unforgettable, indispensable. And when you prove them wrong, not with words but with silence, they suffer. Not because they loved you the way you deserved, but because they lost access to something they assumed was theirs forever. 8. No contact challenges their superiority complex. Narcissists live with a hidden but constant fear of being ordinary. They want to feel above others, more important, more desired, more powerful. But your silence, it strips that illusion away. You treat them not like a god, not like a monster, but like someone who no longer deserves your energy. That neutrality crushes their inflated self-view. It tells them, you're just a person, and I've moved on. And in that moment, their world begins to crumble. 9. No contact threatens their ability to rewrite the past. One thing narcissists count on is revisionist history. Once the relationship ends, they often begin rewriting what happened. You were the problem. They were the victim. You're unstable, toxic, dramatic. But no contact removes their ability to manipulate your memory. When you refuse to engage, they can't bait you into arguments or twist your words. You become the author of your own story, and that's something they never wanted you to be. 10. No contact is the beginning of your healing and their undoing. Finally, and most painfully for them, no contact represents something they deeply fear, but will never admit: your healing. They see it in your glow. They hear it in your silence. They feel it in your peace. You are rising. You are evolving. You are rebuilding. And their suffering increases with each step you take toward emotional freedom. As we continue exploring why narcissists suffer so much when you go no contact, it becomes more and more evident that the pain they experience isn't rooted in love, empathy, or longing the way a healthy person might experience heartbreak. No, their suffering is more primitive. It's ego-driven. It's rooted in panic, identity loss, and emotional chaos. It is not about you as a full human being. It's about what you represented to them: validation, control, reflection, power. And when you disappear, when you finally detach from that role, they're left with a terrifying vacuum. Not just the loss of a partner, but the collapse of system they've been using to keep their fragile inner world intact. Let's explore what continues to happen in the narcissist psyche after you've gone no contact. As time passes and your silence deepens, they often spiral, internally first, then externally. They start with denial. They tell themselves you're just emotional. You're playing a game. You'll be back. Maybe you're testing them. Maybe you're bluffing. They'll wait it out. But you don't come back. Then they go into anger. They rage internally or outwardly. They may lash out at others, to mutual friends, or on social media. They may send flying monkeys, people who try to get information from you or convince you to re-engage. They may smear your name, lie, distort your history together. It's all a defense mechanism to protect the lie that they still matter to you, but you still don't come back. Next is panic. They may reach out themselves, texts, calls, gifts, apologies, sudden moments of what appears to be remorse. They may try the Hoover maneuver, try to suck you back in by promising change, acting sweet, or reminding you the good times. This is a test, because if you break no contact here, they know they still own you. They'll feel relief, but only because it proves their story to themselves, that they're irresistible, unforgettable, and most of all, in control. But if you still don't come back, that's when the slow, silent collapse begins. Their fantasy of power starts dissolving. The myth of being the center of your universe unravels. And the terrifying truth creeps in. They were never that important to begin with. This is the most dangerous moment for the narcissist, not because they become physically violent, though some can, but because they start turning inward. And for narcissists, their own mind is the most chaotic battlefield. Let's pause here to be very clear. No contact does not destroy the narcissist. It reveals what was always broken. It does not create their pain. It simply removes the distractions and illusions they use to avoid feeling it. Think of it this way. A narcissist is like someone drowning in an emotional ocean, but instead of learning to swim, they grab hold of others and push them under to stay afloat. When you go no contact, you're no longer that life raft. They may scream. They may thrash. They may beg. They may blame you for letting them drown. But the truth is, they were never learning how to swim in the first place. They were using you to survive. And now that you're gone, they have to face themselves. And they don't know how, because narcissists are emotionally unequipped to self-soothe. They were never taught to validate themselves. They never developed the internal stability that emotionally mature adults rely on. Everything they've ever built has been based on a reflection they see in others, especially in those they manipulate. So without that mirror, without your reactions, your pain, your chasing, your forgiveness, they're empty, unstable, emotionally unanchored. And here's the twist. The more peaceful you are, the more grounded you become, the more you shine in your healing, the more intense their inner chaos becomes. They don't understand it. They can't regulate it. So they try to escape it through distraction, new relationships, excessive posting, playing the victim, or even making impulsive life changes. But it doesn't work, because none of it replaces you. Not because you were a perfect source of love, but because you were a source of emotional reflection. You were a screen they projected their false self onto. And when that screen goes blank, they suffer. Now, let's take a moment to focus on you, the survivor, because narcissistic suffering often leads people to feel guilty. You might start thinking, did I overreact? Should I have said goodbye more gently? Am I being heartless? Let me say this as clearly as possible. No contact is not cruelty. It is self-protection. It is mental, emotional, spiritual hygiene. When you go no contact, you are not punishing the narcissist. You are protecting the part of yourself that they consistently ignored, exploited, or shattered. Yes, they may suffer, but that suffering is a natural consequence of losing access to someone they never truly valued. They didn't protect your peace. They didn't honor your trust. They didn't safeguard your vulnerability. So they lost the right to be in your presence. And if their pain feels unbearable, that is not your burden to carry. Healing doesn't require vengeance. It doesn't even require them to suffer. But the truth is, when you choose no contact and choose it consistently and calmly, they will suffer. Not because you are cruel, but because they no longer have access to what they once took for granted. And for someone who only knows how to feel significant by dominating or manipulating others, that loss is like a slow emotional death. So, what should you do with this information? You don't need to gloat. You don't need to monitor their downfall. You don't need to wonder if they're hurting or happy. Because the real power lies not in whether they suffer, but in the fact that you don't have to suffer anymore. You don't have to twist yourself into a pretzel to be enough. You don't have to decode their mixed signals. You don't have to live in emotional chaos, walking on eggshells, questioning your reality. You are free, and the peace that comes with that freedom, that's your real victory. Narcissists suffer deeply when you go no contact, because the one thing they rely on more than anything, your attention, your energy, your reflection, is gone. They suffer because you've reclaimed your voice. They suffer because you've stopped feeding their fantasy. They suffer because you are no longer under their spell. But the greatest suffering of all, the one they can't explain or fix, is this. You prove that they are no longer necessary. Not for your healing, not for your happiness, not for your identity. And in doing so, you become what they feared all along, someone they couldn't control. So if you've ever doubted the power of no contact, if you've ever wondered whether your silence means anything, if you've ever felt tempted to go back just to ease the discomfort, remember this. Your no contact is not just silence. It is a statement, a boundary, a revolution, a declaration of your worth, and a mirror they cannot escape. Let their suffering be their own. Let your peace be your justice. And let this next chapter belong entirely to you.